Okay, um, we're just gonna get back, so I will start my introduction of my dear friend Charlene. And are you on with us here, Charlene?
I am here, Philip.
Yeah, wonderful. I'm glad we get to finish with your story, with your connection with us today. I know it's fitting. Sorry to have you for the end, but I know the energy that you bring
Okay.
and how much you actually, you've been with us the entire day. The messages that you're sharing and updating. Thank you for taking the time and to walk through this first conversation that we're having from the advocate side of things. So really, really appreciate it. Um, everyone here, this is Charlene SanJenko. Um, Worked in business, collaborating from supportive business mastermind groups to leadership development. You're such an inspiration to myself for the journey that you've been on, the people that you've inspired, that I know from just our circles and your background, what you're doing, what you've done with Powerhouse Media. We've shared quite a bit with the audience today, but you're also on the next path for creating a 100% Indigenous media production company. You just never cease to amaze me, and I'm so glad to be, part of this journey and to get to connect you with other financial advisors, people from this profession across BC that do care about this space. And today is a lot about connectivity, starting to have this conversation, just see where it goes from some of the conversations we've already had. So thanks,
Mm,
Charlene, for being here. And yeah, let's run off to the races. I will jump on to share your slides. So
awesome.
let me
Thank
get
you.
that ready while you complete your intro here. So I'll get on that here.
Thanks, Phil. I will start by just completing an introduction. I am really grateful to be joining you from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Squamish First Nations. My husband and I made a deliberate choice to move to the Sunshine Coast in 2004 when we were in our early 30s. And I think most of the retired folk here at the time in early 2004, they wondered why these crazy kids were moving from Vancouver over to the Sunshine Coast. But I'm going to be honest with you, it's one of the best decisions that we've ever made. I'm really grateful to have a few minutes of conversation with you. I want to tell you how much I've learned from the guests and the presenters today. Just deep gratitude, as I think everyone probably feels that. I would tag team with Mike and Dean on any future conversations. That's for sure. I think we would have a lot of fun. So I think what I'm grateful for today is any gathering is an opportunity to create space, to listen and to learn, to hold a container where people can arrive in their full presence and to share their highest gifting, and then to see what is that reaction, what's that experience that we can walk away with. So just before we get into what I'd like to share today, a little bit of my story and then a little bit of some celebratory things that I think we could move forward with. Just going to ask you one more time to find your feet, to take a couple of nice deep breaths. And if there's any energy in you right now that just doesn't feel great, I'm going to ask you to shake that out. And if there's any energy that you're looking to bring in, I'm just going to ask you to bring that in. This is the last session of our time together. And I'm here to lift and shift is basically what my role is. So I entitled this little presentation, I called it Creating an Indigenous Relations Plan of Intentional Action. And yeah, Phil mentioned Powerhouse. That is our social impact organization that was founded in 2013 and has foundational roots back to 2000. And we activate and amplify the sacred work of change makers. So my whole, the last 2 decades of my professional life has been dedicated to this type of work. So Phil, we can click forward. Yeah. Here's my bold, brave truth. And I know you've done a ton of listening this morning. So all I'm going to ask you to do is to make note at this time of the headlines that you see, the bold, brave truth. Here's what I'm going to approach you with. I believe that we're the generation to heal. I believe that the people that are on this call right now, we are the generation to heal. But there's one caveat, if we hold it as our highest priority. I believe that we have the everything we need to have it happen. I believe we have the desire. We wouldn't be here this morning. But I also believe that the biggest thing that we need to manage is our level of distraction and prioritization. And that is why, as a media visionary, I'm so passionate about exploring how, where, when, why, what gets our attention. A Paul Hawken quote that I at least recently listened to on a Rich Roll podcast: the majority of people are disengaged. So they recognize and they want to do something about global warming, but the root cause of global warming is that we are disengaged and disconnected. The solution is reconnecting the broken strands. Interesting. The solution we're looking for. Yeah, we can move forward, Phil. Thank you. So this just speaks to, I think, financial planners and accountants and professionals and lawyers, we're in our heads a lot. But today I'm going to ask you to listen for the next 20 minutes or so with your body. I want you to feel it. I actually want you to feel what resonates with you. And I want you to recognize that when you listen with your body, that's what opens up your heart. We're not going to figure out where we're at in 2021 from here. We're going to figure it out from here, from our hearts. And what I would recommend for you is, I think anything that is going to get prioritization needs to be heard at least 3 times. I think the current media stats are something crazy like 21, how many times you need to see a message before it sticks. But here's my suggestion. You're going to hear me and see me speak to this today. When you get the follow-up slides, which I'm happy to share with you, I would ask that you read them through again and feel them. And even better, read them to someone you care about. Share them, auditorily share them. We have 5 senses that the Creator has given us to take in information. So see, touch, feel, taste, smell, embody what you've taken in this morning to integrate it. So let's get on with just a little bit of my story, what's brought me here today. And we can move ahead just a little bit. Well, I think what made me so excited to be able to chat with you today is I'm a really interesting cross-section of the folks that are in this room. I am an Indigenous woman. I'm a founder. I'm an entrepreneur for the last 2 decades. But guess what? I actually cut my corporate chops in the financial services industry. I was a national marketing manager for a private investment firm across Canada in the mid 90s into 2000. And this is my world, believe it or not. In 2000, my soul was calling so loudly, which now I understand was my Indigenous heritage and background. And I did leave, but I took the brokerage model with me and laid it over a change-making model. So a bit of my personal story. I can relate to a lot of what has been said today. I don't have proof, but I was put into the foster care system in 1969. At the end of the 60s scoop, luckily enough, I was adopted from the family, by the family that took care of me in the foster care system when I was 4 years old, a non-Indigenous church-going amazing family. My life is a total gift. And I'm so grateful that I was adopted out of the foster care system. However, that also being said, I grew up not knowing I was Indigenous. There was a knowing in my stomach. There wasn't a knowing in my brain. And it wasn't until 5 years ago that I finally listened to my stomach and sought it down and spent years proving my background, finding my birth mom, proving my heritage, and getting the status card in my hands. And it's interesting because when I received that status card, I was so proud, and it was like a piece of my soul got put back to me. So it was interesting to hear a previous speaker look at that status card a little differently. So even that is quite interesting. I'm from the Splatsin tribe of the Shuswap Nation. That is in Enderby, BC. And my grandmother was a residential school survivor. And my cousin, who was born just 3 months earlier than I, is a murdered and missing Indigenous woman who was murdered by her husband 4 years ago in the community where she grew up, where we both should have grown up. So I left, she stayed, I lived, she died. So you can imagine the type of responsibility that I have grown up with consciously and also subconsciously. So that's led me to basically where I am today. I want to just say, like, that it's been hinted at the media piece of it. Why I'm so fascinated by media, we'll get into just a little bit later, but media has our attention over 12 hours a day. And I think that in order to get upstream and to the level and the momentum of change making that I feel is possible, it goes back to how do we hold it? How do we hold the changes that we want to make our highest priority? Well, where is our attention going on a daily basis, right? What messages are we receiving? So I'm going to get into kind of the meat of the presentation. I take a pretty proactive approach. I have spent the last 5 years really immersing myself in Indigenous relations for personal and professional, curiosity. And I have to just talk about for a minute just how much potential, hope, passion, talent, I've been thrilled to work with, to activate and amplify. I want to be clear that I work between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. I believe that that's why the Creator put me here in with the background that I have, is to be able to play that middle area. How do you make the type of partnerships happen that need to happen? So one thing, if you do not remember anything else from today, I would like you to remember the word transfer, skills transfer. So what I did was I took my natural gifting and my skills from the corporate industry, and I basically transferred them over to lay them over what is the change that I'm looking to make right now. When I'm talking to a group of conscious financial planners, I just get excited because I'm like, wow, we're going to create a plan to move this forward. Like, what else would we do? So I think what I would love you to consider is, you, more than anyone else, you know the value of a solid plan and then executing on that plan. You just transfer it over, because otherwise we're going to come out of this situation today and we're going to be all excited and we're going to go every which way and we're going to diffuse energy and we're going to go bits and pieces here and there. And it's like, but what's the plan? What's the plan for 7 years from now? And then 7 years after that, and 7 years after that. When we do business planning at Powerhouse, we're doing business planning for 7 generations from now. That's the type of planning that I've been learning to do. So I'll give you some ideas. There's just 3 Ps. Some of them have already been touched on today with some examples. So that really makes me excited. Review your policies. Review those continuing education credits. how could they be done better? Every single meeting or practice or gathering could be started with a land acknowledgement. I don't know why it wouldn't be. I don't know why that wouldn't be common practice. And there's other policies and procedures and principles that they just need a good review. What's a 10% shift that you could do better? Priorities, well, there's lots of priorities, but I'm going to ask you to feel what priorities most land for you. I'm going to just name a few for you and see what you feel in your body. I would encourage you to think about short-term and long-term priorities that you as a group of financial planners feel most excited and called to take action on. For me, my priorities are really to shift the narrative around how Indigenous peoples think of themselves and believe of themselves, and how they are also seen in the world, because they are absolutely incredible. And again, see, I talk, I, we, they, it's easier for me to say they. They're incredible, and the potential, they are the people that will help us understand how to heal our future as we're ready to listen. So I would encourage you, priorities could be something like, yes, fundraising is important, but I would always shift from an asset strength focused approach. I love the idea about the financial associate planner's position. I love the idea of financial literacy boot camps, clean drinking water initiatives, Indigenous at youth programs. I am working with a group very closely that I'll make sure comes in the follow-up information. I had the pleasure of walking beside I3. I3 is Indigenous Innovation Initiative, and they are doing just that. They're raising money and providing startup funding for Indigenous innovators to realize on the solutions that they have that their community needs. And they're absolutely an incredible organization. The other thing I'll just encourage you to remember or think about with the priorities is create some clear filters for yourselves as a group. A filter for yourself. Know what is important to you and what you feel most excited about, and have some filters set up so as incoming opportunities come, you have something to kind of decision-making filters, right, to run them through. And then finally, people. Again, this was touched on before, and these are all just considerations for the plan that I feel is brewing here. But when I think about, I mean, I came from the brokerage industry. I know the power of relationships, networks, and connections. And I just know the amazing connectivity of power that this group has. So how are you harnessing those networks? For what purpose? I would encourage you to establish an Indigenous affinity group. You do not know who in your professional sphere will identify as Indigenous until you start to put that in place. That is one of the recommendations I make with a lot of clients. It might be an Indigenous affinity and allies group for a while, but people will start stepping up. I also encourage you, as those people start stepping up, to think about running an Indigenous financial planner recognition campaign. Now, that might sound funny to say right now because you're like, I don't even think we have any Indigenous financial planners. You don't know that. And when you find them, you need to lift and shine a light on them, because that will help to recruit more. When folks can see that that is happening, they then can see themselves in those positions. And of course, I'm going to make a bit of a shameless plug, but this is what I love to do. So consider working with a cultural liaison like Powerhouse to take some steps and to walk forward. So what might some of those steps, we can actually just go to the next slide. What might some of those steps to walk forward look like? again, these will come to you after the fact, and there's just one more paddle, but we've talked about some of the first ones. When you are meeting and in conversations with Indigenous peoples, like I don't know why this should be any different, but this is one of the very most important things I have learned. Yeah, someone else mentioned it earlier. Like we in the Western world, we tend to talk over each other, just waiting for that opportunity to speak. If you the first point with Indigenous people is just listen and listen and listen, but listen with an open heart to learn. Listening circles are the thing that builds trust. We've heard that word come out a lot today. And they also provide an opportunity through listening circles. You might be like, well, what's a listening circle? Today was a listening circle. Today was a listening circle. And they help to build a foundation to start to work on a framework that's non-assumptive. We can't assume that we know what a community needs. We can listen, and we might just listen for the next year. I know that is hard for Western people, but we may just listen. And then we also need to understand capacity. I was in a meeting yesterday with Indigenous peoples, and I said, I'm meeting with 100 or so financial planners tomorrow. What would you have them know? And some of the answers that came out were, have them understand that they need to understand the capacity of those who are receiving. Because right now there are some pieces happening where amazing amounts of support are coming in, but the capacity isn't there, and it's just very overwhelming. I think we touched on this one already. This goes in with our networks. Just take personal stock of your privilege. I do that all the time. I'm extremely privileged. I grew up in a non-Indigenous home. I am now taking stock of, okay, how could I best use my reputation, my resources, my sphere of influence for the change that I'm looking to make by 2030? I've definitely put a timeline on it as well, by the way. And then the last piece, and this is a bit hard for us to understand sometimes, but I heard it best. Someone said, it's not about, I had it written down because somebody else said it this morning. It's not about trying to fix the problem. It's trying to just unblock what might be blocking greatness. Yeah, that's the piece. The greatness is there, but there's certain blocks in place. So what can we do to unblock and just liberate that life force that's already there? And then I think there's just a couple more slides and we can start to wrap it up. Here's a couple of things to just to think about, to understand. My challenge, have a bold, brave goal by 2030. If you have a goal, then I would challenge you as an organization to challenge other organizations in your industry. I heard some amazing pieces that were happening by Canada Life, and I recognize them, I honor them, and I immediately thought, okay, we need to put a challenge out to others in the industry to meet or beat what you're doing, because they'll listen to you. They may not listen to the people that need the others to step up, but they'll listen to you. So how do you best use your voice? We all have to just acknowledge that it's our beliefs that guide our behaviors. So just like David Dean was saying prior to me, we have to really check ourselves at the door, because if our beliefs are a certain way, our behaviors are going to be a certain way. And when you are showing up with yourselves, a great practice, but show up with your full presence to take your interactions from transactional to relational. Most of my relations with my clients take about at least 2 or 3 years of relationship building before anything else moves forward. And again, it's a very different approach than cold calling and, certain ways that we're used to doing business. I'll just circle back to honoring the past while we're working forward with a hopeful future. Sometimes when I go into a meeting, I just again remind myself I'm here on behalf of 7 generations that came before me. I'm here on behalf of the 7 generations that are going to come after me. I just happen to be the person, the vehicle in this conversation, but it's not all about me. We can just move ahead to the next slide, Phil. Oh, this is just there's a couple of invites here at the end. I wanted to give you an example of kind of what I do in my day, but there is a workshop coming up for just an hour in a couple of weeks. And there's 3 of us Indigenous women talking about impact investment and Indigenous women's entrepreneurship. So again, if you want to be a fly on the wall and just get a little bit more information, these are all the different time zones. So just note the time zones, but the registration call link will come to you in a follow-up email. And then I think our last slide is just a little bit about what's moving forward with me. I'd love to reconnect with anyone on this call from an Indigenous, old investment services industry person, but where Powerhouse is moving forward with this fall, we're launching a sister organization with what I believe is the first ever impact media fund. And our media will be media that heals the human spirit. Sorry for the typo there. And we're just working on the next phase of innovation for impact, which is brand brokering and impact media production. Primarily Indigenous productions and some non-Indigenous, working it in as that bridge. So exciting times for us at Powerhouse, but also there are so many exciting things happening and hopeful things happening with Indigenous peoples across Canada's. I'm so glad that this conversation is happening today, and I think it's a great time to be involved. Thank you very much.
Well, Charlene, I thought this was such a good fit for the end, as we've talked about connecting, trying to hear some optimism, excitement, and of course your passion exudes. And I could see in that photo, I almost want to put it back up again there at the end, is like when you get into anything, you're so driven and motivated to not just do it for yourself, but bring apart such a great amount of community around you along the way. So, you know, anybody who wants to actually start doing things, get connected with, you know, a leader such as yourself. Obviously, this campaign of being 100% Indigenous owned and operated on the media and impact production is really special as well. So, you know, you just never know where things will transpire and where this conversation was going to go today. And thanks for being open and willing to, you know, to get involved and be here. So no, this was really special. Any comments, questions directly for Charlene? Any last thoughts? I love the action plan that we'll have. And again, this was day 1. I don't know what the conversation is going to lead to from here, but I hope we'll keep collecting content, success stories, goals that people are going to move forward with going forward from here. So that's what I'm really excited about, of what that turns into. I hope we're going to keep hearing from people throughout the year, of as they reach out to people, opportunities that they have, and then we come back next year and we don't just have a BC chapter or the 4 BC chapters hosting this. It becomes even more viral from there and can take off. So yeah, thanks for the inspiration and being willing to step up and get involved. We do have one more poll that we're going to send out to everyone. And we will send everybody's content ideas. Oh, maybe one last comment here, Charlene, on this event that you had shared, the Wichitoan. So it's wichitoan.ca. And Chrissy just put it up because I'd send it over when you recommended that we get involved with it. And if you know a little bit about it, or you can kind of preface what that is, and we will share it afterwards. So think you jumped in.
Yeah, that is, I mean, there's some great events across Canada. This one is coming to us from Saskatchewan and was shared from some of my contacts there. I'd encourage you to check it out to see if it appeals to you. I believe that it is it's a longer commitment, so it might have to be something that you pop in and out of. Trying to think about if there's anything specific on that one that I can
Okay.
share with you.
Yeah, it seemed pretty open that anybody can get involved and attend. And again, with the technology that we have, it is frustrating that we can't be in person as much as we wanted, but now we can connect with you, that's connecting with people in Vancouver, North Van, all over the island, in remote areas of BC. So I think that was important. And if we can move to having in person and, you know, some hybrid type of model, I think that's what we're going to look at as well.
So Philip, I'll just launch this poll
Great.
for you.
So what we're challenging everyone to leave off is just to share ideas from the priorities, from the people that Charlene was putting out there. I'd love to keep in touch and just hear what people want to do moving forward. Yeah, again, we're trying to be nimble on the program side. We're here to listen to what speakers, people you're connecting with. So this is who we started with from today, and we hope we can just keep moving forward on all this. So our big challenge is to come back at least for next year to share ideas, progress, some of the plans that we can put in place. Me personally, I wanted to share that I have reached out to a number of my Indigenous friends that, you know, I kind of golf with, been involved with for years, that you just don't realize, you know, the labels and things, and just sent some personal notes of, you know, I want to learn more from you and kind of do things a little bit differently. And just from the meetings I've had that led to this event, met from university professor Frank up at UVic. He goes by Francois, but made sure I called him Frank. He will be involved in a future event and loves this conversation. Just the learning and listening and taking that time, which again was mentioned so many times here throughout the day. So